Welcome to the Augmentation of Man with Kent and Renee Miller, where we are giving the future.
Today we're going to talk about Mother Earth.
Protecting Mother Earth.
The different things that is happening and how it can be protected, helped be protected.
And we're not going to be discussing all the things that people are already hearing about. These are going to be, for the most part, these are going to be things that humanity has not
addressed.
That we don't even know for the most part. And these lessons are being taken out of the Augmentation of Man, a study in Renaissance. And you'll find that on chapter 11, Gaia is being damaged for the spoils of humanity. And then we're going to add more to this.
Okay.
So here we go.
So what humanity doesn't know
or isn't
not talking about. Yeah.
Right.
So here's what the guides have told us.
These are spiritual guides for people who don't know who we are. These are, when Kent goes into meditation, he goes into a deep trance. He can hear spiritual communication and he can see visual images. And so these lessons are, for the most part, been taken from what we have been taught by the spirit world on behalf of the Creator.
Yeah, well, I'm talking about depletion and corruption of the infrastructure of this world, this earth, and it's changing the molecular structure of the electromagnetic field, creating what is typical a severe wobble, unstable wobble.
And they're talking about the wobble of the electromagnetic field. So it's changing.
Yeah.
And what they're telling us is the electromagnetic field lines had shifted 15 degrees south-southeast at the time of the message, which was several years ago, and that might have changed since now. And that a magnetic pole shift is the single most important event to reinstate the balance to Earth's electromagnetic field and return Earth to, and her electromagnetic field to a state that's balanced, but also in alignment with universal laws.
We know that the magnetic field changing will be followed by the Earth changing to meet the new magnetic field. So with that, many things are going to take place, which we've talked about in previous videos.
So do you want to talk about most of the problems that we're creating is due to mining. And so our focus today is going to be mostly on the mining, but not entirely. And this is what the spiritual world is seeing and viewing that we're doing that's disrupting the environment. And it's not the totality of what we're doing, because there's some things that we need some clarification on as far as what we're doing to the atmosphere that's causing a severe imbalance.
Yeah, but we're mining in such a degree that the earth can't replenish the material that is being mined out, therefore causing more severe problems. The supply of these materials, such as uranium, is causing a severe structural integrity to the Earth's core.
A breach to the integrity of the. So the way they described it is that uranium is an energy source that forms the encapsulation of the Earth's core.
It helps form it.
It helps to form this, and because we're continuously mining the uranium, Earth is continuously having to replenish it in order to preserve that integrity of the core.
Now, uranium, mining of uranium leaves residue on the surface, which is picked up by the wind. The native people inhaling these uranium particles that are blown in the wind.
And most of this is because a lot of Native American tribes live near areas where they're mining uranium, and it's causing some real difficult health problems with the Native Americans.
Yeah, because it also gets down in the wind, but gets in the, as the cells, it gets in the drinking water and the water with children play in ponds, etc.
Mhm.
So they're constantly being exposed.
Right. And also when it gets into the water system, then people end up drinking it. And a perfect example was that decades ago, there was some uranium mining that was taking place along the Colorado River, and they never cleaned it up until just a few years ago. And during that entire time, that uranium was leaching into the Colorado River, and people are drinking out of that water, drinking that water. So this is a real problem.
Yeah. And the guy said, they actually said, do not dissolve the energy. Foolish people, foolish people they're talking about that dissolve the energy.
That are mining it.
Mining it, yes.
Yes.
That a rebuilding of the structure must occur. Do not continue to tamper with the energy structure of this planet. Stop all removal. And that was given to us several years ago.
Yeah. So, humanity we're a young culture. We don't realize the ramifications of the actions that we are doing. And the uranium is an energy source, is a very strong energy source, but it belongs in the earth, and we should not be taking it out because we're depleting the earth of that energy that's necessary to protect the core.
Yeah, we need to reduce our demand on electricity. There are nuclear power plants, there are coal burning power plants, and all these different things, but people, they don't think when they use electricity like it's almost like it's free.
Mhm.
They leave lights on, they use power equipment using electricity unnecessarily. There's different things. There's too much
TV is
being
left
used.
on
Now they
all
want to
day.
go electric cars, and we don't have enough electricity now to hardly keep the homes in amount of electricity that they need. So where's all this electricity coming from? It's not being.
And we're being
produced.
told that we should not build any more nuclear power plants, and we should
Right.
not be mining any more uranium. So we have to really look at how much energy we're wasting, and even going beyond the waste is that a lot of people just like to be comfortable, and so they set the thermostat at X degrees, and so could we get away with raising the thermostat in the summertime so that we're in the house, it's a little bit warmer, and in the wintertime lowering it so we're a little bit colder and we have to put a sweater on.
It's not just a home. Look at these big cities that keep all the lights going all night.
Mhm.
And like Vegas,
Yeah.
the lights are going, the different things all,
And that's
all
not
night long. And
addressed.
these huge cities are eating up electricity
Mhm.
totally unnecessarily.
Right. Yeah. And so all you need to do is drive downtown any big city.
Any big city, yeah.
Yeah. And it's all lit up. So the other thing that they're addressing is our mining of iridium.
Iridium is a rare, kind of a rare product that was actually came here. It's not indigenous of the earth. Came here on meteor strikes many millions of years ago. And iridium is mostly recovered during the mining of copper and nickel.
And so they take this iridium and they combine it with other metals because it easily fractures and breaks apart. But
it's being used for production of
for all kinds of things, but compass bearings, the tips of ballpoint pens, jewelry, anti-glare components of some optical lens, and that might be more in maybe the sciences, but high temperature devices and electrical contacts, and even in satellite phones.
Yeah, so
And so we're going to eventually have to find a way of replacing iridium with something else for those items.
Yeah, iridium is paramagnetic. This means it can become magnetized in the presence of a magnetic field.
And so the guides have said that iridium is scattered across the earth and it forms like these anchor points to create the stability of the magnetic field curvature. And so it does have a magnetic effect when it's in the presence of a magnetic field. And our guides are telling us that the iridium is interacting with our electromagnetic field, the curvature, and it's giving the stability to the curvature. But our mining of that iridium now is depleting that stability and creating this wobble of the electromagnetic field.
So the guy said we may need a iridium.
And the way they, the way they said it was, we may need an iridium hit, and that means it has to be by meteorite showers. And so, you know, some of these, like, again, you know, humanity doesn't understand these things, and we're trying to get that information out there so that at least people can start thinking about this, and maybe science can catch up, and we can start to do things in a different way that is more preserving to the Earth's integrity.
Yeah, and when we were in the field and we did a meditation some years back, we were told that silver and gold is being mined out of the earth, and it's disrupting the structural integrity of this planet. So we were in Colorado when we got this meditation, and the mining leaves barren land and leaves polluted waters and land behind.
And the guides have even told us that the beauty is being damaged by the spoils of man, and that they will correct this. Mother Earth reclaims all that is hers.
And she is beginning, just now beginning to reclaim.
Yeah, and so when they say this, the beauty is being damaged by the spoils of man, is that we're taking this silver and gold and we're using it for jewelry, and we're adorning ourselves and spoiling ourselves. And the real value is really within the earth. So we need to look at the value that we place on our jewelry, because if the value is misplaced, it can actually be a weight to the soul, according to our spiritual guides.
Yeah, and it is a weight to a lot of people.
Because the earth is so much more important than us individually.
So the next thing we want to talk about, which is everywhere you look, everywhere you touch, is aluminum. It is so plentiful and is used in every aspect of the human life. Such things as,
if things that, you know, are obvious, or your cooking utensils, your pots and pans, aluminum foil, aluminum cans, but it's also found in laundry detergent, makeup, appliances. Of course, we know about cars, it's used in vehicles, but chemicals, it's used in a lot of
acids.
Yeah, medical things that we're ingesting. Toothpaste.
Household siding and vehicles.
Yeah. So they extract aluminum from something called raw bauxite, Pauxite, bauxite. And the extraction process requires an enormous amount of energy and water.
Water is in supply, the supply is dwindling, I'll put it that way.
Right.
It's the drought,
especially on the West Coast.
Drought around here in the United States. And the drought is causing real issues. And so the water is becoming more valuable every year.
Yeah. So we have to be careful about our water resources. we have to also be mindful that all of these processes require hazardous waste and chemicals to process it. And that ends up getting into water supplies or getting into the air and polluting the earth.
Yeah, the
So
EPA says that perfluorocarbons are released in the smelting of to get aluminum itself, and the smelting is 9,200 times more harmful than carbon dioxide when it comes to global warming.
yeah, so they use in the smelting process of aluminum, they use such a tremendous amount of energy that these aluminum plants actually have dedicated power plants just to their needs alone. That's how much energy they're using, and this is not being addressed.
Yeah, so we are surrounded by aluminum everywhere.
And this
even antiperspirants,
right, yeah,
have aluminum.
So we can affect this with our buying habits. In this case, now the iridium that's kind of out of our hands, except for buying maybe ballpoint pens. But the aluminum, we can stop buying the cookware that's aluminum, which is not healthy for us. And there has been indication that is possibly causing or helps to cause Alzheimer's, but also stop buying your drinks that are in aluminum cans and using so much foil.
Yeah, try to use underarm deodorant without aluminum. Try to look for that. Using if you have antacid, we found an antacid that has no aluminum. Yeah, and we have found underarm deodorant that has no aluminum. So if you look and you demand no aluminum in these different products, the manufacturers will listen. They will listen.
They follow the money.
That's right. They follow the money. And the people quit buying the things with aluminum and buy things without aluminum. They will quit putting aluminum in these different items. And they will, just like the organics. Many years ago, you couldn't hardly find an organic product, but edible organic product. Now, because people have asked and demanded more organic products, now stores have sections of organics.
Right.
They carry. So
yeah. So in order for them to stay in business, they have to follow the money, and we can we have more power as a consumer than we realize.
People have more power on everything. If you realize the power that if you get together, the power the people have is fantastic.
And so if we just consciously think about where we are putting our money and direct it that way, when you start to multiply it amongst the population, then it makes a big difference.
So I've seen caustic tailings in mines that left excavated mine pits and eventually leach out contaminated water, which will pour out. Eventually, it'll breach, or somebody will accidentally breach it, and it'll get into the rivers and really mess the supply up, especially to those people that are drinking the water from the rivers and drawing it into their cities
and farming.
Yeah, and we saw that in Colorado.
Right.
So smelting.
It just to talk about that just a little bit is that there was an old silver mine up above Durango, Colorado, and there was an accident with some earth moving equipment, and it caused this holding tank that was holding holding pond that was holding all this toxic waste left over from this mining operation that no longer exists, and it dumped all of that toxic waste into the Animas River, and that river turned school bus orange or yellow, and it went all the way down through Durango into New Mexico, where they were pulling water out for their
farming and for drinking water.
And it was unbelievable. The color of that water, I'm going to show you, was this color. And all that toxic waste is still there today.
So how many
sitting
times
at the bottom.
how many times has this happened and you didn't hear about it?
Mm-hmm.
How many times? So contaminated water, and then when the smelting gas emits toxin, while the smelting is going on for the aluminum, and the particulate matter is in the air, what kind of health effects does it have?
Yeah. So we have to understand that mining in general results in deforestation, because they have to come in and clear cut the land in order to get in there. And then the ground ends up contaminated. The ground and surface water end up contaminated. And there's wastewater disposal issues. What are they going to do with all this water that they've used that have chemicals in it? It creates sinkholes, it creates erosion problems, and it even creates conflict between peoples, because you have these mining operations that go into foreign countries and start taking over native lands. And it also alters native ecosystems and affects wildlife.
So all this recycling of aluminum just uses just 5% of the energy and releases only 5% of the gases and toxins in the air, having to smelt raw aluminum.
Yeah, so there's a comparison being made here. When we recycle the aluminum, it's only 5% of the energy used
to recycle it
than it is to produce it from the raw product. And the same with the amount of gases and toxins that are released into the air on recycling. It's only 5% of what it is when we produce it from a raw product.
Yeah. So raw product is much more toxic.
Yes, and it takes and requires much more water and energy. Yeah. So by focusing on recycling of aluminum and being very diligent about it, we can reduce the energy and water costs. We can reduce the toxins in the air, but also it helps to reduce the health problems, the contamination in the soil and water. And we have to also speak about how a lot of these landfills, they burn. Well, some of them still do.
Some of them still burn, but even if you bury the aluminum, it still takes up to 500 years to decompose. 500 years.
Yeah, and when they burn it, then it's releasing those toxins into the air, of course. So
try to get away from using aluminum.
Yeah, that's going to be really important. And we really need to get into recycling, even if your city does not have a recycling program or you live in a rural area, which we did when we were in Colorado. We had big trash cans. We lined them with big plastic bags, and we put all our recycling in. We separated it out there at home. And then when the bag got full, we just pulled the bag out of the can, tied it up, and we took it to the recycling center. It can be done, and it really needs to be done.
It takes a little more of an effort.
It does.
But it can be done.
Yeah.
Now, the next thing we're going to talk about is in the headlines right now, and it's been in the headlines for some time, and that has to do with plastics. So plastics is an environmental disaster. All these plastic bags used in grocery stores. I think Hawaii finally banned plastic bags.
Yeah.
You have to bring your own bag. Mm-hmm. And that's what should be done. Plastic bags, we've seen plastic bags choke off all kinds of things, not only in the ocean, but all over.
And you know, there's a good share of people who really kind of sneer at the fact that, you know, some cities are doing away with plastic bags and you are forced to bring your own. But if you have never been to a landfill, you will understand why. And I really encourage you, we encourage you, if you've never been to a landfill, go to one. You will be absolutely disgusted by what you see.
By how much plastic,
yeah,
especially plastic bags there are.
Is probably the number one thing that you will see in a landfill is all the plastic bags.
Yeah, like all your containers come with a plastic, like 6 plastic rings to hold the container conveniently. Clip those rings. Just take what it takes, about a minute or less to take a pair of scissors and clip those rings open so
animals don't get caught up in them.
I mean, there's so many things that we can do and we don't.
So plastic comes from the processing and refining of oil. And as of, I think it was 2015, 4 to 8% of global oil was going toward making plastics. And by the year 2050, that is expected to go to 20% of the oil going to plastics at our current rate. And so when they're extracting oil, it's not just through the pumps, but it's through fracking. And when they frack, they can use plain water, but they usually have their proprietary mixture, which means they don't have to disclose what chemicals are putting into the water, that they're drilling down vertically, and then they drill horizontally, and they shoot that water that has chemicals in it to break up the rock and the shale so that they can extract the oil and the natural gas out of it.
Yeah.
But
So
when they're doing that,
how
what
much
happens?
of that leaks into not the well water necessarily, but the aquifers?
But the well waters are affected, and the oil companies are so rich that they have at their disposal all these high-paid, aggressive lawyers. And so your common person who may have a well that becomes contaminated has no way of winning against the oil company if their well has to be shut down for
plastics
contamination.
Are found in every aspect of our life now. 40%, 40% of plastics are used on packaging, much of which is a one-time use and then it's
thrown away.
Chalked. Yeah. Unlike recycling of aluminum, the recycling of plastic is much, much different.
Yeah, it is completely different than aluminum, which aluminum is saves a lot of energy and water and resources and contamination to the air and the environment. But for plastic, it's really not cost effective, and often it has to be subsidized by governments.
Yeah, only 10% of plastics are
really
recycled. And even that 10%, much of the manufacturers that recycle and make it into another product aren't showing a
profit. No. And so you have a lack of initiative to recycle the plastics. And there's a lot of countries, what they're doing is they're taking that responsibility and sending it off to other countries. And what I'm getting at is the US and other countries,
large countries.
Like Germany is another one, where they send their plastics to places like Thailand, the Asian countries, Thailand and the Philippines. And so they're being overwhelmed by our trash. And we really need to take a look at alternative ways that we can package things that are not going to be such a problem.
We need to come up with something other than plastic bottles for drinking water outside of the home, plastic bags, all these things we don't really need.
And it's backing up to the point that we're starting to live in this
plastic economy.
It's like becoming like living in the trash can, because we're just surrounded by plastics. They're everywhere in our environment. And they're finding that there's these nanoparticles of plastic that are in our drinking, whatever we're getting as far as bottled drinks, it's in the water, it's in the drink that we're drinking, and we're getting these nanoparticles of plastics in our bodies. And then also when they end up in say lakes and rivers and the ocean, and the sun hits them, they start to break down into these nanoparticles, and they're attracted to certain toxins, and then the fish are eating them and they're being poisoned, and other wildlife. So
we're poisoning ourselves.
Yeah, we are.
Eventually.
Yeah. And so we cannot continue to follow this path, because it really is unsustainable, and we cannot recycle our way out of the plastics problem because it's not economically viable.
Yeah. So the next thing we want to talk about, this might be getting a little bit long, but next thing we want to talk about is solar panels. Solar panels, we used to have solar panels, and then we started doing research, and we figured out, wow, these solar panels, it takes much, much more to process a solar panel than a solar panel is worth.
Well, then what we thought, you always think of certain things as being so environmentally friendly, right?
It's made up of aluminum and copper and quartz, mining.
And all of that has to be mined. So we get back to the mining issue that is deforesting, and it's leaving toxic waste in the land and in the water.
What's the lifespan of a solar cycle?
So once you get the product made
of a solar unit,
of the solar panel itself, it'll last approximately 25 years, and it doesn't have any emissions. But we have to consider the fact of, to make that product, it is doing damage to the environment, and just bringing it to market.
And emitting a huge amount of toxic gases
in the production.
Some of it is captured by new EPA regulations, scrubbers, etc., but not all of it.
And then we get to the problem of when the solar panel is no longer useful, it's not working any longer. You have all these things that have been made that have to be recycled somehow. And so they can end up being toxins in landfills if we were to just dump it.
So
we do have some places, a few in the world, that will recycle these products, but at the rate that we're producing them, we have to look to the future, 25 years from now, 25 years from now, even less time than that, where we're going to have to be able to dismantle and recycle all the constituents, things that make up the solar panels, and be able to handle the volume that we're creating today.
Organizations have to come together to not think 3 years, that's for profit, or 5 years, that's for profit, to start thinking what will take place in 20, 25, 30, 35, even 40 years with this product that we're trying to push on everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And find out from this, you don't have the science yet to figure that out, but you've got enough intelligence to figure out what these materials and the mining of them and what everything is going to cost us. And we start making science manufacture products that don't corrupt or don't contaminate the earth and help start cleaning the earth. Mm-hmm. I'm not talking about the air, I'm talking about everything, the ground, the water, especially the water, since it's becoming more and more contaminated and less,
and in shorter
drinking. Yeah, mm-hmm. We've got to start doing something.
And our guides are saying that magnetics are going to be the key to many things. Elon Musk and Tesla are looking at that now. And so that's something to keep our eye on, is
Yeah.
where they are going to take this
This rare earth.
in this technology as far as magnetics, and how will it apply to, say, vehicles in the future, or our appliances? How will it apply to producing electricity? That will be very interesting.
Yeah, look at the problem China is now just beginning to have
Mhm.
about their environment, their polluted environment, their acidic rains, etc. They are now just developing these issues, and it's coming back to pay them back, to haunt them.
Mhm. Yeah. So China holds the market on both mining of and use of rare earth minerals, which are used in electronics, like in our computers and our cell phones, but they're also used in things that we would think of as environmentally friendly, and that would be wind turbines, hybrid cars. So
And that's the chips and stuff, which you can't get right now.
yeah, but China is doing a lot of the
Yeah.
mining worldwide, and they are processing these rare earth minerals, which has left the land surface severely damaged, polluted, acidified, to the point that it is actually impacting food crops. So they have at just one of their mining facilities, they have an 11-kilometer square waste pond that is full of toxic sludge. And they really have not had the foresight to deal with the toxic waste that they're producing.
And one of the last things we want to talk about is appliances. We've gotten new appliances about 5 years ago. And one thing that really irritates us is these appliances are made to last 5 to 7 years ago. 7 years.
Mhm.
We gave her folks our old appliance, what, 15 years ago at least?
Maybe about 12.
12 years ago? Well, it's
Mhm.
probably
It was a
about
washer
15
and
years
dryer
old by
because
now.
we moved.
They're still using it.
Yeah,
Yeah. So
But
the
see,
appliances contain.
they
what?
used to make them to last 30 years.
Yeah.
And then we had a problem with our refrigerator and had a repairman come out, and he told us that in, I believe it was 2010, that they started digitalizing a lot of the appliances, but in order to keep the cost down, when you go to purchase them, they started cheapening all the inside. And it doesn't matter if you get the cheapest or you get the most expensive in that brand, they're all the same inside, basically. And so in
You're not talking about the inside that you can see.
Right.
You're talking about the inside that you cannot see.
And so in 2010, they made these appliances across the board to last about, let's see, it went from 30 years down to 15 years. And then in 2015, they made them to last 5 to 7 years. So the technology is there to make them last longer, but they're trying to keep the cost down, and instead adding all this fluff.
To keep the cost down, but to have more profit.
Yeah, but also to have everything digitalized. So if we went back to buying products that were more basic and didn't have all the bells and whistles,
If
then
you can find the product.
yeah. But there's things like
They're
Speed
used.
Queen
Yeah.
that makes a traditional wash machine that doesn't have all the new digital equipment on it, and they make a wash machine that is like what they made 20 years ago. And their claim to fame is that these wash machines last 20 years. So if we direct our buying
attention
toward those type of companies that make a quality product that's not going to break down, one, they're going to chase the money, and they're going to start making a product that's built to last. But also, you have to consider the fact that if you're replacing an appliance every 5 to 7 years, what is it costing you versus 20 years down the road when you've bought only one appliance in that time. So yes, there's a little bit more upfront cost, but in the long run, you're saving money.
We're telling everybody, do your homework. People just go out to wherever the local appliance store, Home Depot, Lowe's, etc., all those different big stores, and just, oh, I like that machine, that wash machine, or that dishwasher, or whatever, and buy it new. It quits working in 6 or 7 years, or even 5 years. Then you say, well, it's going to cost a minimum of $150 for an appliance man to come out and just look at your machine. That doesn't say what it's going to cost to fix it. So instead of going without the machine for some time and saying, well, I don't know if I can afford that, you go out and put it on your credit card or your loan and get another new machine.
But the thing is that every time we buy something new, that puts demand on the mining. So it goes back to the mining. So the more that we buy these cheap products and we have to replace them more often, the more demand that it creates on the mining industry, and the more the earth gets torn up and polluted.
Yeah, like the wash machine or dryer, now you're talking $600-700. Never used to call that, or more.
With the pandemic, it's gone up even more.
And so it's got what you're getting, the value of the product you're getting is not near what you're spending to buy it.
And there's I mentioned Speed Queen, but there's other brands out there that actually make quality products that they're a couple $100 more, but in the long run, you do end up saving money. The other thing I want to bring up is the thing that most people don't talk about is, why not buy a used and refurbished product?
If you can do it.
If you can, because maybe you spend $150 to $250 on something and it lasts just as long as what you would have bought brand new. That's something to think about.
If you're not going to replace plastic bags, we suggest that you reuse them from the grocery store. Reuse the plastic bag instead of grabbing a new plastic bag each time. Try to reuse the plastic bags so they no longer can be reused. So then you can recycle.
We have these great canvas bags that are made by Trader Joe's. They're really heavy duty and they're big, and you can pack a lot of stuff in them. Those things we've used them for years, and they're still just as good as they were. They're strong. You can put the heaviest of things in them. You can pack them full of all kinds of stuff.
That cold HEB bag. We've got 2 of them. We've had them for 7 years now. So,
those are easy. It's just a matter of forming the right habit. Remembering the bags when you take them in.
So, and we've talked about the landfills and try to reuse what you have, try to make them last longer. And that doesn't take a whole lot of effort. Once you get into the habit, the recycling of all this, it'll become a lot easier every time you do it.
I think too that
it's a habit. This whole thing is a habit.
It is. But if we went into stores and start talking to the managers and saying, hey, can you guys start bringing in some products that don't require or don't use all this excessive plastic packaging?
Well, you can, but people have to change the way they think. The majority, and that's very difficult, have to change the way they think.
Again, the most effective way to promote change without any conflict is just to direct your money in the right direction.
With organics. Same way we talked about, they never used to be organic. Now they're everywhere because that's where the money's going.
Yeah. Now, another thing is our cell phones. So the cell phones have got they've got plastics, they've got metals, and probably rare earth minerals also, and they require special recycling. But so you go to the store, your cell phone carrier, and what do? They say, hey, you know what? You're ready for a brand new phone, and we'll give it to you for free. maybe your
Well-
phone that you're using is still good, but what do? You trade it in for the other
Yeah,
one.
remember, nothing is free.
And it ends up not being free.
gonna
Even
cost
even
you.
the free one is still going to cost you 60 something dollars by the time you're done. So if we learn to turn that down and wait, because that free offer will still be there when you come back and your phone is not working right. If we wait, we can put less demand on that industry. And again, it gets back to our mining of the metals and the rare earth
Yeah.
minerals and the production
Right.
of plastics.
Yeah, always try to buy used appliances instead of new appliances,
Mhm.
ones that have been refurbished.
Yeah. And so what else can we do? We can be less consumers.
Yeah,
We tend to use buying as a form of entertainment. I think, especially here in the United States, is that we like to go to the mall, we like to go shopping, we like to buy stuff. But that is putting a demand on the energy, is putting our waters at risk. Every time we buy something, it has to be either mined and or manufactured somehow.
I like the way you say stuff, because that's what it is. It's stuff,
It is.
you know?
It gets back
We don't
to
even
what
know
we
how to,
need.
yeah, we don't even know how to grow our own food anymore.
Yeah. But it really gets back to need versus want. So you have to stop and ask yourself, is this something I need, or is it only something that I want? Am I trying to satisfy the high that I get from buying something, that adrenaline rush that's only going to last you maybe a day or two before you're wanting to go out and buy something else just to satisfy your addiction to adrenaline?
Yeah.
And so we really need to think about why we're doing things, and if it's something that we truly need, if it's something that we can put off. At one point, our wash machine was making a lot of noise, and we ordered a new one thinking it was going to go out, and the guides told us it's not necessary at this time, so we canceled the order. Well, that was 2 years ago. We still have the same wash machine. Yes, it makes a lot of noise. Yes, I would love to get rid of it, but you know what? It still washes. It's still good. So we're going to keep it until it's worn out and it no longer works.
We got to quit buying so much things we don't need. This things we don't want.
The other
we want everything.
Yeah,
we can't
do.
have everything.
Right. And the other thing is that so often we'll throw something away that's still useful. Maybe we don't need it anymore, but we throw it in the trash, but maybe somebody else could use that. So think about bagging your things up, taking it down to the Goodwill and having it recycled by somebody else.
Yeah. So in these huge houses, these huge houses where the family is there, and then the kids move out, and the parents are stuck with this huge house.
2 of them, and it's a 5,000 square foot house.
You gotta clean it. I mean, stop and think. Buy what you only need. The houses never used to be the size they are now. They're ridiculous.
And you have to think that you have to cool it, you have to heat it, you have to maintain it, you have to paint it, you have to replace things. All those things require taking from the earth. And so it really does not make sense anymore to live in these great big houses. And we've got to think about downsizing in that way, and also multiplicities of houses. So
how many houses can you live in at once?
Yeah. One of our biggest pet peeves is when we see people that are on stage talking about environmental issues, but yet they're flying around in jets
and have maybe 3 or 4 or 5 houses
that are enormous. They're big houses. Yeah. So we need to walk the talk.
Yeah. Don't talk if you can't walk it.
Yes. And so lastly, we need to keep in mind that as we enact laws that protect the environment, are we making it so strict that we're chasing business out of our country to other countries that have no environmental laws? So what happens essentially is globally, the pollution actually increases.
Yeah, it's better to have smart legislation.
Mhm.
Smart legislation. Keep businesses here instead of forcing them out to countries that don't have any regulations.
Yeah. So we got to think of it in the bigger picture, not just, oh, the US is clean because of our laws, but what have we done? We've pushed all the manufacturing to, say, China, and look at how terrible they have been with their environment.
So, we've got to start thinking about the earth as a whole instead of just our little country here.
So
I think we can step off of our soapbox now.
We hope that we've given you something new to think about and do some research on.
Just act on some of these if you can. Just even one or two. You don't have to act on them all. We don't expect you to act on them all, but just get the ball rolling. Get people thinking a little bit about their environment.
Yeah, and change comes steps at a time. So it's real hard to make big change all at once.
Yeah.
But if you make a plan and you start changes one thing at a time, then before you know it, over the years, you will have changed a lot of your behaviors and the earth will become cleaner.
Yeah, and I talk about, instead of us trying to change the native peoples of this planet, why don't we learn from the native peoples and try to enact some of their thinking into our sphere?
Yeah, because they do have the bond with earth that most of us don't.
So with that,
if you're interested in the book, and much of what we talked about today was in this book, Studying Renaissance. It's available
second edition.
Yes, second edition. It is on Amazon. And thank you for joining us. And we look forward to next time. Hit the thumbs up and pass it on. Have a good day.